back to A Well-Designed Business. My name is LuAnn and I'm so glad you found this podcast. Together with my husband Vince and our partner Bill, we have grown our company WindowWorks from the ground up. So I know and I understand the challenges you face in running your interior design business. I also know that your talent alone isn't enough to ensure your success. So on this podcast, we talk about strategies and practical steps to help you grow your business. But make no mistake about it, we have our share of fun here too, mixed in with those aha moments that I love so much. This isn't fluff. Nobody has time for that. Whether you are a new interior designer or a seasoned designer, I am here to help you create and to manage the kind of interior design firm that you dream of. It's straight talk and it's action. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hi, welcome to A Well-Designed Business. Have you ever walked into a gorgeous luxury hotel or resort and your breath just gone, right? Magical, awe-inspiring places. And you know why. You know how. It's by design. Unlike residential interior design, hospitality design is another world entirely. It involves grand lobbies, intimate spas, several different room types, and you aren't designing for a specific person or family. You are designing for a brand and all the connoisseurs around the world of that brand. Today, I'm joined by an icon of the hospitality interior design industry, Jill Cole. Jill is the managing principal and president of Cole Martinez Curtis and Associates, with offices in Los Angeles, San Francisco, Napa Valley, and London. In 1980, she took a leap of faith to work on reopening the Adolphis Hotel in Dallas. Since then, Jill has devoted herself exclusively to hotel, resort, and recreational design. She has a long list of awards and accolades. But I'm going to tell you what, the properties that she has designed and worked on speak for themselves. If you've ever been to the Lodge at Sea Island in coastal Georgia, Hotel Valley Ho in Scottsdale, Arizona, or Bardessono Resort and Spa in Yountville, California, then you know what I'm talking about. These are not your run-of-the-mill hotels and motels, my friends. No, ma'am, no, sir, they are not. And here's the thing. Jill is here today to talk about how she has sustained an impactful and extensive 40-year career in our ever-changing world. We get into a little bit of everything in this conversation, from finding inspiration, embracing tech, and staying true to your core values. This is a wonderful conversation with one of the best in the business, and I'm pretty sure you're going to enjoy learning and listening to Jill as much as I did. Hey, Jill, thanks so much for joining me on A Well-Designed Business today.
Thank you for having me, LuAnn. I appreciate it very much.
Well, I said to you a few moments ago when we first started chatting, I'm looking forward to this interview because I don't get the chance that often to talk with hospitality designers, number one. Number two, hospitality designers with a 25, 30 plus year career. And anybody that listens to my podcast on the regular knows that I love interviews with entrepreneurs that have 3-4 decades in, because I'm like, this is going to be so good. Right. And then the other thing is that an interior designer, a principal firm owner that has 4 locations. And so you've got like this little trifecta things of going on that I'm like, yay, this is going to be like a fun time for LuAnn. So I'm excited and looking forward to it.
Right.
So here's the thing. You do have 40 years of design experience
Correct.
in commercial and hospitality design.
Correct.
I understand that you were the one in your firm that kind of turned the firm into hospitality design, that it was primarily a commercial office type firm specializing in that. And then an opportunity came and you took the bull by the horns and did that first hotel project, I think you mentioned
Correct.
to me. Tell me about what that would have been like, back in what year was that? And what was that like to be in a firm that had a lane?
It was the 80s.
Okay. So the 80s. So we're in the 80s. The firm has a lane, and the firm was originally established in the 60s. So
Correct.
It's a 20-year established firm.
Right.
it has a lane, it has an identity, and then this opportunity comes along. And talk to me about, was that easy? Was that hard? Did you have support? Was it, kicking and screaming? What was that like, Jill?
Well, it was interesting because first of all, the opportunity presented itself because we had a client who bought old office buildings that we renovated for him, and we turned them from sort of Class C buildings into Class A buildings. He acquired a piece of property in downtown Dallas that included the Adolphis Hotel in Dallas, which was built in 1918. And his intent initially was he was going to convert it to an office building. However, the city of Dallas said, no, you can't. We've decided it's a historic landmark. You have to keep it as a hotel. I had been working with this
Mm.
gentleman for a long time, and he was, we had a very good, creative relationship. So he called me up one day and he said, I just bought this property in downtown Dallas. I was going to turn it into an office building. They won't let me. Do you want to design a hotel? And I said, sure, why not? I had never designed a hotel before. And
Say yes and worry later.
yeah. And so I guess I was young and confident enough in my own capabilities that I thought, how hard could this be? So we started on the project, and it took he gutted the building completely, and pretty much gave us the hotel when it closed, when he bought it, was effectively, it had been used for housing military during World War II, and then it had fallen on really hard times. It had kind of been turned into an SRO, and so it had about, I think, if I remember correctly, close to 800 rooms, and the bathrooms were down the hall. I mean, each room didn't even necessarily have a bathroom. He wanted to turn it into a luxury hotel,
Oh,
back to
wow.
what it had been when it was first opened. So the first thing we did was
Wow.
literally gut. It was about 24-story building. Gut every floor and recreate rooms out of these spaces. And the building was so
Wow.
kind of oddly shaped that we ended up with something like 23 different typical room plans out of a total room count of, I want
Oh,
to say there were like 250 or 275 rooms. It was very wonky. I don't think, you know, either of us, he being my client or me being the designer, really realized the difficulty of managing something like that. We just sort of let it go and created all these what we thought were great rooms. And so we ended up with 23 different room types, which made the front desk nuts when they were renting rooms. Do you want a room with a single bed or two beds or,
oh,
you
the
know,
ramifications
yes,
down the road.
exactly,
You didn't even
exactly,
realize it. Well, you didn't know what
exactly.
you didn't know.
That's
Now
right.
you would do that. Now you would be like,
Now you
this
try
is
to get
going
a
to make
little
your staff
right,
crazy.
right. Now you get a little more. You try to get a little more standard. But the hotel, as far as I know, and that was quite some time ago, the hotel still has all those room types. It continues to operate. The original person that I worked for doesn't own it
Interesting.
anymore, but it's still going strong.
Wow. So interesting about that. It's like, first of all, we do have to do that. We do have to be willing to do something that we've not done before. And, it's not like you're coming from a career in baking cakes and
No,
somebody's asking you to design a hotel.
no,
You have expertise,
right,
you have, experience,
right,
but it's one of those things where it sounds like during the process you realized, huh, this is another thing that's different.
right. Yeah.
This is another thing that's
There's no
different, right?
question. There's no question that,
Okay. Mm.
just because we were successful doing office buildings doesn't mean you go immediately and become a hotel designer. I mean, there are things that are specific to
Yeah.
that particular industry, just like there are with office buildings, Each one has its own specialties.
And the other thing that was in your favor was that you had this established relationship with this client.
Correct.
It wasn't like you were telling a stranger client, I got this.
Yeah, no.
He knew that you had never done it before
Right.
and he was asking you, did you want to throw
Right.
spaghetti at the wall and
Right,
try it?
right.
Right?
No, I mean, we were both, we were teaching each other, frankly. And luckily for both of us, he
Yeah.
did
Yeah.
have a management company that had expertise in hotels. So when we'd kind of get off into the weeds, these guys would reel us back in and go, no, no, you can't do that, So, but
You
it
can't
was
do
a
that.
very
Right, right,
interesting
right.
process. And the other wrinkle, which I failed to
Mm,
mention, was the owner came from California. We came from California. Because the hotel was so important to the history of Dallas, it is 2 blocks from the original Neiman Marcus in downtown Dallas. The city, the
hmm
people of the city, the locals, were kind of pissed off, bluntly, that people from California were messing with their Dallas landmark. There was a lot of
Oh.
negativity in the air about that. When we finished the job, and they staged the grand opening, they had a big ball, a weekend ball, and invited all of, the local Dallas community to come, and people walked in, and it was very satisfying to me because people came in and said things like, this looks just like it looked when Aunt Tilly got married here in 1930, stuff like that, which was really made me happy because
Wow.
literally we gutted the building. There was nothing left of the original hotel except for a few little pieces here and there that we were able to save.
Oh my goodness. So they were skeptical of those, out of towners, but then
Exactly.
they ended up realizing that you were there to bring the vision back to life,
Right.
not to erase the vision and
Right.
bring your own vision
Right.
to it.
And they even
That's
actually, there
awesome.
was a
That's
local,
that's awesome.
yeah, there was even a local TV show that was done, the local news. We took them on a tour through the hotel. It got great press, local press, when it reopened, which was very satisfying for all
Mm.
of us.
That's great. That's great. So so through the years, so then that was like the first, and then of course, is the firm now strictly the
Yes.
hospitality hotel type thing? I know I've seen the video that I've watched about the Napa winery and stuff. So we
Right.
don't do office design
Right.
any
No,
longer.
what happened was, as time wore on, and I think I mentioned to you earlier before we started the recording, Martinez and Curtis retired from the company, and I really wasn't interested in pursuing retail or office interiors. By that time, I had fallen in love with hospitality design. So the employees that wanted to stick around after we were giving up retail and commercial, I retrained as much as I could. Some of them kind of fell by the wayside. And, slowly but surely, we just turned the ship and it just became specialized in hospitality until 2009, when
That's
the
good.
world came to a financial end and the interior design community was really suffering. We had an opportunity again,
Hmm.
kind of by luck, to do a high-end retirement community, which we at that time had done no senior living work. But the developer of that
Mm.
project was interested in us because we did a lot of very high-end resorts. So they gave us a chance to work on this particular project. And again, we learned about the specifics of senior living, which is related in many ways. It has its special requirements, of
Right.
course, but it is kind of a related field.
Yeah, I mean, especially because, um, my Aunt Honey that I talk about a lot about on the
Uh-huh.
show, she's super, super active. She's 82 years old now, but super, super. I mean, she still will walk the Caminos de Santiago. She like goes on like 5 trips a year where you're always like, where's Aunt Honey? Oh, she's in Turkey. She's in the Netherlands. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right,
you would never, ever peg her at 82.
right.
And by the way, I just said it on air. She probably will be really mad at me
That
that
you
I just
said her
said that. I
age.
just realized. But anyway,
Oh, well,
yes.
sorry, Aunt Honey.
um, but the thing is, I know, right? I'm like, but about, I guess it's probably going on about 12 years ago now that she moved to a high end residential senior facility,
Right,
right? And it's like one of those great facilities where first it's completely independent living.
right,
It's like living in a hotel. Then there's
right,
the assisted, and then there's the complete care if you ultimately need
right.
it. And she is still in her complete independent living. But the thing is, I remember when her and I were talking about it, she was like, I don't know that I want to live in a seniors
Right.
thing. And I was like, Aunt Honey, you are the queen of like doing things with people. She takes tap dance. She's in a tap dancing uh, group.
Wow.
They do recitals. I'm
Right.
like, you go on group travel trips. She was part of a flash dance mob like 5 years ago. They don't get together and do flash dances in La Jolla, right? And I said, "Are you kidding me? You don't want to like come out your door and there's people there? Like,
Right.
come on, we're cut from the same cloth. You want to be with people."
Right.
But the thing was, to your point, of it being like hospitality, like hotel design, when I visited, it's like living in a luxury hotel.
Right.
It's not like living in a nursing home. You
Right.
know what I
Right.
mean? And so as us boomers age, and we stay active, like me, I said to Vinny, we're going to a home, and if you're going, I'm going to one. Like I want to be around
Right.
everybody,
Right.
but I want to be in a nice place. I want to, like, if I want to go out and play, pinochle, I don't want to be like, there's nobody around and all my kids are busy. I want to
Right.
walk out to the day room
Right.
and play pinochle.
Right. Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Exactly.
So,
No, it's
so that's good. Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
it's becoming more and more acceptable, and the whole idea of people in the hospitality industry getting into that is it's not your grandma's nursing home. Exactly, that's the point.
Right.
It's much more
That's it. I
about
mean, she's got
lifestyle.
yoga classes, paint
Right.
classes.
It's about lifestyle, it's about spas, it's about a lot of things. It's about exercise, about swimming pools and exercise and hiking, and it's a whole cooking classes even. I mean, all sorts of stuff. Interestingly enough, we did a project in Fresno that was the residents there. It's a group that have lived, in the same community for years and moved into this place. And the women had this big kind of cooking activity, and they had a bakery shop where they sold what they were baking, and it was part of the whole, you know, it's lifestyle. It's not, it's just different. It's fun. I
Yeah.
think it's
Yeah.
really
I love
fun.
that. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's how I am. I'm like, yeah, I want to go.
right. Exactly.
So, okay. Um, Now, one of the things that you mentioned to me also was that you need to actually embrace tech in order to take back your time to be creative. So I don't think too many people would probably push us back on that sentence, but I'm more curious, what ways do you embrace tech? What sort of tech do you employ so that you protect that time in your day, in your week, to be creative, Jill?
Well, I would say one of the most probably easy one for everyone to recognize as affecting us is, and I think this applies to designers of every type, interior designers that specialize in whatever they specialize in. We spend a lot of time every day looking for product on the internet. We don't have to go to showrooms much anymore. We don't
Hmm.
go to the design centers like we used to. I mean, that's all kind of fallen by the wayside. In hospitality, our designers depend on, yes, having reps for the big brands to come in, and even the smaller brands. We're always looking for new ideas and new product, and we do rely on the reps to give us, information. But when we're looking for ideas and things, we spend a huge amount of time surfing the internet.
And so that cuts, because, it's funny because I interviewed Gene Stouffer recently.
Uh-huh.
I mean, you must know who Gene Stouffer is,
Mhm.
right? And we were talking about the days when, if you had to go out and source, you literally had to plan the day to go to the design center.
That's
Like,
right.
it was like,
That's right.
okay, on Wednesday,
Right.
I'm going to get up, I'm going to go, I got to make sure my kids are taken care
Right.
of, or I'm bringing my kids with
Right.
me. And you had to map out, okay, I got to get to Cravat for fabric. I got to get to
Right.
this one, to that,
That's
because
right.
you couldn't just open it up on the
No.
internet, right?
No.
It was like you had to spend the day. And so
Right.
you recognize that your team is much more efficient by doing the initial sourcing through the
Positively.
internet, and then also accessing your reps.
Absolutely. The reps, I mean,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think,
Are there other things and
well,
ways?
yes, I think, but I would say, just going to the reps for a minute, I think the internet has, in
Mhm.
fact, made a situation, since we don't go to showrooms hardly ever anymore. we have come to rely even more on our reps because, there are times when you positively still need, just like I said, designers need to have interactions. We need to have interactions with the reps as well and with the product. Looking at a carpet on your screen isn't the same as holding it in your hand. So you still got to have
Right.
that. You still got to have that touchy feely moment. And it's really important. A rep can tell you a lot more in, 3 or 4 sentences than you can learn on the internet, I believe, if they're good at their job. So, yeah, that's a
Yeah,
point.
it's so true. It's so true.
So, and
Yep.
then
Okay, and are there other particular technologies that you use?
positively, I mean, AutoCAD has, drawing and all of the documentation that's needed, particularly in all types of contract work and residential too. I don't mean to demean residential because it's everywhere. I think
Right.
being competent and comfortable with, you know, documentation, with all the documentation that takes place to build a building, design the interiors, all of that takes place now with a computer. I think back to when I started in business and people hand drew everything, that just doesn't happen anymore. It just doesn't.
No. I was just saying to a designer yesterday, I was on Voxer with her, and I was having a moment. LuAnn gets pissy sometimes, and I was having a moment about, yeah, about, at WindowWorks, we get probably 400 or 500 emails a day. Like,
Right,
I know our company isn't unusual. We're just barraged.
right,
And I had a situation where a designer think, did not think that their firm got their follow-up email from us saying that a project was completed and it went well. And basically the designer needs the green light. Is it
right,
okay to call my client and say, how do the drapes look?
right,
Like, you don't want to be blindsided, right?
right, sure.
And so we were having a discussion. Yeah, and we're having a discussion, and she's like, and for example, I didn't get my, email last week, blah, blah, blah. And of course, I come into WindowWorks the next day and I'm like, we're not sending these emails out anymore. Like, what's going, and it turned out that we had sent it. We had sent it
Right,
on that day.
right,
But you know what? The designer also is probably getting 200 emails, so
right,
she didn't see it.
right,
And I was like, you all think this email thing is an improvement. I'm telling you, we used to do business with a telephone and it
right,
was much better.
right, right. Yeah, no question about it.
It used to be I finished a job for a designer, I called them.
Right. There is that. I mean, I do
Yeah,
think,
it's
I mean, and
crazy.
even our relationships with our clients and the rest of the project team, I think sometimes we depend too much on emails, and people can sometimes misinterpret something in an email, or people aren't necessarily, great at writing and describing what's really going on, and there can be a lot of misunderstandings. That's been known to happen, LuAnn,
Yeah,
many times. Not And it's not just in our world, it's in
yeah.
everybody's world. A phone
A
call
a
is a
hundred
good thing.
percent, 100%.
Right,
I know. We used to do it all the time.
right, right. But then now these days
Uh,
you sort of go, okay, so what number should I call? Because does anybody have a
I
landline
know.
anymore? That's the other problem.
It- no, I know, right? It's so true. Um, how about when you actually randomly do text somebody and it comes back that there's a landline? I'm like, wait, landline? Who's got that?
Well,
Right?
I mean, I would admit to you, I have landlines because here in where I am in Napa, the cell service is terrible. So I have to have landlines.
I'll bet.
So
You have to have it. Yeah. 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 So another thing that you talked about was understanding design trends in order to inform and expand your aesthetic. So talk to us about where do you go for your inspiration for design trends, and how is that translation of seeing something, getting new information, new trends, and then how you then bring it to your work.
well, I think any designer that I know is hypersensitive to all things visual, and that's really what it amounts to. It's not just looking at, House Beautiful or Architectural Digest. It's going everywhere for inspiration. It's going to museums, it's seeing special shows, it's looking at fashion, it's watching TV and seeing what, Dancing with the Stars is wearing. It's everything. You have to absorb all things visual and filter through that, interpret it in your own way, and spit out the latest trends. I mean, it sounds kind of silly, but that's really what it is. It's a filtering process. It's taking in everything visual and sorting through it. If all you're doing for inspiration is looking at pictures of your competitors' work, you're not doing your job.
See, I love this. I'm going to tell you what. It's a funny thing because I don't know if you don't have this perspective until you have some years under your belt, or if it really is, I'm just going to say, an old school thing. And I can say that fully looking at you, knowing that we're contemporaries. Okay. Um, it is the I mentioned to you in off air that there was a gentleman that I wanted to remember his name, and I just remembered it. Daryl
Oh,
Long.
yeah, okay.
Daryl Long
Good
was on
girl.
this
You
show.
remembered.
Do you know
Right,
Daryl?
I know who he is, of course,
Right?
yeah.
Yes, right? I know. Cue one for the old lady. I remembered. But he also said the same thing. I believe Daryl Long said it. I believe my friend Layden Lewis also said it. And they said the same thing. It's like cautioning and trying to encourage younger, newer, less seasoned designers to not just look at other interior design for inspiration and trends and ideas, but to look to museums and fashion and architecture and all the things. And I think it's very interesting that the more seasoned designers tend to bring this up in the interview.
I just read a book. I finished it about 2 weeks ago. It's a new book. It's the life of Karl Lagerfeld, written. I think his first name is Michael. His last
Mm,
name is Cunningham. I would, and believe me, I don't own stock in the publisher. Nothing, but I thought it was fascinating because it talked a lot about Karl Lagerfeld's process of creativity and how many different visual things he used as reference for what he did. And I think of course, he was in the fashion industry, as we all know, and he was a major success in it for many, many, many,
right.
many years. But I think the creative process is the same. It's the same, whether you're drawing a dress or you're drawing a living room.
Yeah. And I just love that. It's because if you are listening and you are, under say 10 years in the industry and you never, maybe you do it, maybe you're high fiving yourself and say, oh, I do the same thing. When I'm feeling like I want to, just get my juices going again, I go visit a museum, or I can't sit in a restaurant without noticing the architecture or the design, or, not so much the design, but the bones or something like that. Right. But if you don't do that as a rule, I think this is such great advice that you have to be a student almost of the visual world itself in all its form. Is that
Right.
what you're kind
That's
of
right.
saying, right?
Absolutely. I totally think I
Yeah.
mean, I think
Yeah. And you
it's
bring it
not,
back to your work,
yeah,
right?
absolutely. I think it's absolutely, if you're not interested in it all, I think maybe if it's not the field for you. I mean, I hate to sound so harsh, but I really
Mm,
believe that
yeah.
because it's a very visual thing.
Yeah, no. And I know my experience working up close for many years. My original business, Jill, was custom window treatments, and
Right,
I'm right here outside of New York City. So Layden Lewis is one of the interior designers that I've worked with
right,
for 25, 30 years. Charles Pavarini is another one. And these two men are ridiculously creative, like ridiculously stupidly creative. It's like insane the things that they would come up with on their jobs. And separately,
right.
I mean, they're colleagues, they know each other, but separate, obviously, firms. But these two would push us out of our box. Like, one time Layden came up with some like metal wall material that he wanted me to like attach to a drapery rod and make it like and I'm like looking at him like, really, buddy? Like, can we not just pick like a fabric from Cravat and call it a day? Like, you know what I mean? And Charles has, made us like, I want you to put the trim on this way and make it go around and make a square and come out the other side. I'm like, right? But the thing is, it was fun. It was fun. And because I was part of the collaborative process with them, because they weren't just, copying
Right,
something, they were creating something. Um, they often would share with me
right.
where the idea came from. And it was always like this crazy, like I was riding the subway and I saw a sign and I'm like, what? So I love it. I love that. And I
Right.
just love that it keeps bearing out that the really, truly
Sure,
talented seasoned
sure.
designers are repeating the same message. It's good. And then another thing that you mentioned was identifying and staying true to your firm's values will build trust in the hospitality industry. So I think first you have to talk to us a little bit about, you know, how do you come upon, how do you decide your values? We talk about that on the show all the time, Jill, like sit down and get clear with yourself. So what's your advice on for a designer with where they really haven't stated either to themselves or in writing what their values are, and then talk to us about how staying true to them
Well, I mean,
helps you in the
I think you're
industry.
getting down to maybe really kind of basic human traits. What are their values? I mean, every person has their own personal set of values. I think as a company set of values, at least in I think in my personal experience, has been a reflection of the people that began the business and run the business and the chemistry that's been built over the years. I mean, my company is fortunate that we have people who have been with us for a very long time. And I think we've created this corporate stew, if you want to call it that. It's a combination of the values of all of these people that have been together for a long time. And then, layering on newer people and newer people. And I think we've created our own corporate set of values. It's not just some person sitting up on, in the corner office going, "This is the way it's going to be." It doesn't work that way. I think we find our
Hmm.
path together. It's
No.
very much of a group thing, um, to the extent that it can be.
Okay. So yeah, so I think what I'm hearing is that you as the leader, the owner of the firm, and of course you also did give nod to the gentlemen
Correct.
that were previously your partners over the years, that you stand truth in what you believe in,
Right.
what as a person, as a human, and then you continue to train and hire people that
Right.
reflect that and share that, and it makes sense to them, so that
That's
ultimately
right.
it's the
That's right.
culture of
And
the
I think,
company, right?
all the years that I've been in business, the one
Hmm.
thing I've always felt very strongly about, I said, I never want to hire anybody that isn't enthusiastic about going to work every day. If you're just doing this because you need the paycheck,
Mm.
we're not really interested in having you join us because we spend, realistically a large percentage of our lives working. I want people to feel good about it. I want you to be enthusiastic. I want you to enjoy your coworkers. I want you to enjoy the experience of dealing with each other and feel good about what you're doing. The business itself, I mean, we've been very fortunate. 99.9% of our clients have been wonderful, wonderful people. We've had a very, very good we relationships with our clients. There's one or two that maybe weren't so wonderful, but like I said, 99.9% have all been great. But
We all have
but I
those
would
war
tell you
stories.
there's the pressures like now, there's the pressures of, "Oh, gee whiz, the furniture's late. Oh, gee whiz, the contractor messed up. Oh, gee" there's a lot of outside stresses and pressures in the in the creation of buildings and in the creation of interiors that put a lot of stress and strain on everyone involved. And if you're not enjoying the people you're working with and you're not enjoying the process of creating these things and all you're hearing about is the chair that arrived broken and the draperies that fell off the wall and everything's bad news, you're not going to be able to cope with it.
Right. Right. It's the truth. What happens is we all know
That's
that
right.
stuff is going to go wrong.
Right.
Like it's going to. And it's a matter of how full
Right.
is your frustration level. If your frustration level is low because you enjoy what you do and
Right.
where you go and who the people you do it, when the frustration level gets
Right.
dumped on you, you've got a lot of space. But if you're already existing in a mindset that you're not happy, you're not fulfilled, then it's like, it's like that meme where you throw it all up in the air and you're like, F this, right? Yes.
Absolutely going to happen. People make mistakes. If you don't like and respect your coworkers and somebody makes a mistake, then you're just gonna, you hate them anyway. That's not a good thing. I don't want to be involved in a group like that.
It's the truth
That's
because you
right.
have less patience for their
That's right.
mistakes when you don't have respect. Right. Right. 100%. And then what happens is you get involved in not giving the benefit of the doubt and you get involved in looking for the things that went wrong. Yeah. 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 We've all been in those situations. It's miserable. Right. Yeah. So, but when you do work, yeah, when you do work and live in your values, then to your point, it builds that trust and reliability factor with the people that
That's right.
are orbiting you. Like, so, the repeat clients and so forth. I would think it's the same sort of thing that we just talked about. So now something goes wrong and it's a big something, a hospitality project is a huge thing, could go wrong. But if your client knows who you are and your culture, then they're more likely to give the benefit of the doubt, like, this wasn't just a negligence. So let me
Right.
look to see how did this happen, right? And you get a little bit more grace, right?
That's right. That's absolutely true.
Mhm.
Very
Yeah,
important.
it's important. It's important. So, what would you say some advice for any designer listening who is thinking about, going into commercial or hospitality? Is there any things that you would just share as tips or, you know, look out for this or be short of that or
I wouldn't speak to commercial because I left commercial for hospitality. So my passion is hospitality. Okay.
so
I
don't
think
mix
they're
them up.
different.
Okay.
Um,
Okay. Yeah, that's me not knowing the difference. I'm like, it's all commercial. No, it's not though. What you're
right.
saying
I
is
mean,
they're very different. Okay.
the unique, I mean, to me, the uniqueness about hospitality design is um, it's probably one of the few design specialties. I'm talking about interior design here, not other types of design, but interior design. It's one of the few interior design specialties where you have to figure out a way to appeal to a broad market. You're not dealing with, like, if you're doing an office interior, all you got to do is
Mm.
satisfy the firm or the lawyer that's sitting in that corner office. If you're doing at someone's house, all you got to do is satisfy the people who live in that house. When you're doing a hotel, you've got to first of all kind of think about who's going to be staying here. Talk to your client. Who's your aspirational guest? Who are we trying to get to come and stay in this place? And then how do we appeal to them? It's a really interesting, to me, that's the wrinkle that makes hospitality design so interesting.
So you like the challenge of it, the puzzle of it.
I do. I do. I think it's very, very
Yeah, yeah.
interesting
You,
and very, when it works, it makes you feel so good.
so there is you probably at this point have it down to a pretty good science. There must be a pretty thorough intake process where you're having pointed conversations trying to get to specific information, not only from the owner of the property, but then also this might be who you are, Mr. and Mrs. owner of this property, but who are you attracting to this? Who is this hotel being built for? It could be a completely demographic
That's
than the
correct.
owner,
And
right?
and I mean, it depends on the kind of hotel it is. If it's an independent hotel versus a branded hotel versus a boutique hotel, and
Mm,
learning about it's very important, I think, to learn about the market that this particular project is going to be in, what's out there, touring the what we call the comp set tour, which is competitive set. Let's go see all the other hotels in the neighborhood and see what they're like. Um, it's kind of a given in the industry that the various hotel companies, the various hotels will tour each other's properties and nobody it's not some you don't sneak in a disguise and go looking at your competitors. It's out there, everybody knows you're going to
oh,
do
you don't have
that.
to secret shop them. You can
No.
just say, "Hi, we're coming to check you
Yes,
out."
yes. And, if you're doing a
That's really
hotel
cool.
for a brand, the brand gives you a lot of that information. They've got a vision of what their brand represents. And so
Mm.
you have a different set of criteria than you do when you're working on an independent hotel that has no brand affiliation. It's a different exercise. It's a different learning curve.
Right, right. You start to get a reputation for getting that particular brand's aesthetic, and you're on the game plan with them. Interesting. And is there a challenge when you I understand when you're working with a brand hotel, right? Because that's been well thought out way before you walk through the door. Who we serve, how we serve them, what style we serve them in. But when you are working with a newer independent hotelier, so when you're talking with an independent that may or may not, maybe it's their first rodeo for building a hotel as well, is there some sort of dance that an experienced hospitality designer like you might be engaged in where they're saying these five things, but really your research and the other things that they've given you are in contrast? Like you know what I'm saying? It's like when the wife says, I don't really want a TV in my living room, but every time you come over, her and her five kids are watching a movie together. And you're
Right,
like, are you sure you don't want a TV, sweetie?
right.
Right? Like, is that like there's got to be inconsistencies like that too, where that independent rogue, really successful business person has a vision, but maybe it's not lining up with, the market they're intending to serve, and then it's your job to be like, you're kind of off brand here, like you're going down the wrong hole. Does things like that happen, Jill?
Yeah, they do. Um, and I would say it's to varying degrees. Like we finished a historic landmark building that when our client bought, it was a bed and breakfast in downtown Napa. And our client bought it, and his intent was to turn it into something else other than a bed and breakfast. And the local community, threw their arms up in the air. He's a local person, and they went, "No, we want to keep it as a bed and breakfast." And so he found himself suddenly in the hotel business, and he knew nothing about the hotel business. Um, he hired us, and we walked him through. I mean, he's a wonderful man, very generous, very kind, very, enthusiastic about the project. But there were things operationally that he didn't necessarily know about, and we tried to help him steer in that direction. The design of the place in almost in a way, it's almost like someone's house in that it is a reflection of his personal taste, very much more like what you do when you were
Mm.
doing a home, but it does have that basis of practicality, if you understand what I mean.
Yeah, no, you're being very tactful.
Right.
No, you know what? I just can imagine it. Like you don't know what you don't know. And typically somebody who owns or is ready to build a hotel is used to, pretty much running a show, I'm pretty sure.
Right. And
Right.
in the case of this particular
So,
project, that was exactly the case. I mean, he was used to running the show, and
yeah.
you know, he's a successful man, and had the
Yeah.
wherewithal to do this. And so we just tried to be, we tried to earn our keep, so to speak. We wanted to make sure that when it was done, he didn't have major headaches maintaining it. And really, when you think about a hotel
Mm-hmm.
and you think about occupancies, if they're running, if the hotel's successful, it's high occupancy with a lot of changes of guests. It's not like your house. It's a different usage
No,
factor
no.
completely.
Yeah. It's like your house with 100 grandchildren that are there every day.
Yeah, and a lot more laundry.
That's it, right? I'm
Yeah.
always around like, no, 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 don't do that. Don't go over there. No, no, don't touch that. Like, come wipe your hands.
You got it. And they're eating
That's
in
it.
their
That's it.
bedroom
Oh
is
my goodness.
besides.
That's it. That's
And
it.
it could be peanut butter sandwiches for all you know.
That's so true. Oh, it's so true. It's so true. So funny. Oh my goodness. Well, I have to say, I knew I was going to love this conversation. I just I love I said it, in the middle of the conversation, but at almost 900 interviews, I love when the things repeat, whether they're the things that repeat with newer designers, less experienced, the same things sort of
Right.
repeat, and then other things repeat with more seasoned designers like yourself that really have spent their entire career building a great firm. And it's just so fun. I appreciate your time today, Jill. It was a great conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. I enjoyed it very much.
Alrighty, before I share my impressions of this amazing conversation with Jill, I want to remind you, if you're listening in real time, LuAnn University Spring 2023 registration opens up this week, April 13th. And to kick it off, we have our free Zoom event, the Prereqs for Success. If you would like to be at this pre-Zoom event, the Prereqs for Success, go to LuAnnNigara.com/success. So here's the thing. If you are interested in any one of the killer classes that we have LuAnn University, you know what we do over there, right? This is where we teach you the things that they don't teach you in design school. That's what we do over there, okay? We teach you to know your numbers, to know your process, to know your marketing, to know your systems. All right. And the classes are going to start May 1st, 2023. But if you attend this free Zoom event, you are going to come away with tips, strategies, ideas, tactics, and tools from each of the university instructors on how to improve your business in one way from each instructor that day. Okay, so this is a pen and paper event. You're definitely going to learn something. You're definitely going to get some ideas that you can take to your business. But as a bonus for coming to this event, you will get an extra $100 off any of the 5-week courses during the first 3 days of registration. And if you sign up for a LuAnn University course during the pre-registration period, you will be invited to a free Zoom event with me on June 15th, 2023. It's going to be a free coaching event where I'm going to be talking to you about the absolute 7 non-negotiables that the luxury client demands. Okay, you listening to me? The 7 absolute non-negotiables that the luxury client demands. So if you are providing these, you are probably working with luxury clients. If you are not providing these and you don't know that you're not providing, then you probably are not working with the luxury client and you might not know why. So I encourage you, go to LuAnnNigara.com/success and join up for this free Zoom and then get all the bonuses. Okay, so let's talk about Jill, shall we? Okay. You know me. I love talking to all of you. I absolutely do. Whether you are just getting started, whether you're a few years in and you're telling me the out of the gate experiences that you're having, positive, negative, the struggles and everything. But I always, always love talking with business owners that have been through the decades, right? That you really are able to look back and they are able to put that perspective hat on, okay? And Jill is proof that you can only maintain a career of this magnitude and this longevity with some skills, right? And I want you to notice one of the skills that Jill has is her eye for opportunity and her willingness to pivot. Okay. She talked about the Adolphis Hotel, 1980. This was not what her firm was doing. It was not the type of design they were doing. It was a risk, but she saw the opportunity. And this ended up being a major pivot in her career, right? And then she said in 2009, when the whole world went haywire, financially speaking, right? She saw an opportunity again, and she was willing to pivot outside of her comfort zone. And she gave retirement community design a try, right? And since then, she's had tremendous success in high-end senior living. So I want you to take to heart, because we are in a changing world. And for all the ups and downs the last few years have brought us, we have to always keep our eyes open to opportunities. And more than that, you have to tune into your inner voice and have the courage to try something new. That is my biggest takeaway from this conversation with Jill. She talked about it like it was easy breezy. I mean, she did, but it's not easy breezy. It's not easy breezy at all when you make that big of a pivot in your business. And so hear her, but this is that perspective of it happening 40 years ago. And so she says it like, like our friend Terry Taylor says, pass the salt. But I'm telling you, I'm giving you my perspective on this. She had courage, she listened to her inner voice, and she made the change and made the pivots. So if you are experiencing anything in your life right now, in your business right now, that you're sitting and pondering on, tune into that inner goddess voice and figure out what you should do, okay? Now, Jill makes a case for embracing tech, okay? I think most of us are on board with that, and there are different ways to go about it. But the bottom line is that tech is all over interior design, right? Inside, outside, upside down. You cannot avoid it. Whether it's AutoCAD drawings, 3D rendering, software apps, anything and everything, take advantage of it to streamline your business, right? If you listened recently, I had the interview with Hilaire Pickett Martin. She is the operations manager, the COO for Design Lines, a firm her mother started in Raleigh, North Carolina. And in that episode, Hilaire had great suggestions for the technology that she uses to build out the systems and processes for that firm. We'll put a link to that show in the show notes, because it's a good show to listen to if you're like, yeah, Jill, you're right. I got to get on this tech thing. Okay. I know that we use tech all the time here at LuAnn and Jill Inc. and WindowWorks and Exciting Windows. Okay. But it isn't everything. And Jill made the point here, the case in point for the importance of the relationships with sales reps. We need those interactions. We need those touchy-feely moments, as Jill called them, okay? So yes, one hand in technology, but she's saying keep the other hand in real life, in those relationships, okay? Because these are also foundational for your business, okay? And I hope you have good reps, because a good rep can improve your business, right? I think about companies like Revelwoods and My Doma Studio and the way that they support their clients, you, the interior designer. And you haven't heard the episode yet, but Aubrey Fox, who is with Revelwoods, she's coming up soon, and you will hear how, as a working interior designer, she understands the type of support that you need, and both in tech and all the things at Revelwoods, and how she facilitates that for you. Okay, so I want you to make sure to listen to that, because it's really the essence of what Jill is saying, is the combination of tech and the relationship. And that's kind of what Aubrey ends up telling us about. Okay. Another part of this conversation I just love is when Jill was talking about where she finds inspiration. Okay. You could hear it. She has a tremendous appetite for everything visual, as you probably do too. But do you tap in and notice it? Okay. So think about it. If you're a writer and you want to be a better writer, you don't just write the words on the page. You consume everything from the classics to the local newspaper. You do that. Okay. So to be an accomplished, creative, talented interior designer, you take a page from Jill's book here. She says, find inspiration in fashion, in art, in television. Okay. Of course, she says she looks at her competitors and what they're doing. It's an integral part of the equation, but that's different from like actually translating something that you see in a different medium that inspires you. Okay. Now, I have to tell you, I mentioned on the show past episodes with Darrell Long, 587, Layden Lewis, 703, and Charles Pavarini back in episode 16. Each of these seasoned designers talked about that ability, that discipline, that tenacity that they have for noticing everything around them. So if you're a young designer and you are literally relying on Pinterest and Instagram for inspiration, I'm just going to say, like, I won't say what I'm going to say. I'll say it nice. How about you pick your head up and look around in the world? That's what I'm going to say. Right. I'm not knocking Pinterest and Instagram. Go there, look, applaud what your friends and your colleagues and aspire to be, the people who you want to be. But true artists, true creatives are finding inspiration in the way the sand is on the beach and the swirl and blah, blah, blah. Right. That's what these iconic designers, Layden, Darrell, Charles, Jill, are explaining. So if you're trying to tap in and really, really tap into what you have inside of you, then sit with your thoughts and your observations on what you see in the world. Okay. Another thing that Jill touched on was the values and the importance of knowing your values and bringing them into your business. We talk about this all the time. We have a gabillion shows talking about how you have to know your mission, your vision, your core values. Okay. Probably you could search on my website in the podcast search bar values and come up with a half a dozen episodes that talk about this. But it's because it's a thing. It's real. Okay. Values are foundational to your business. And Jill explains how when her company founded in 1967, how those values have become their company culture. They live and act their values day in and day out. And that's what builds trust and brings the clients back over and over again. Okay. And the last thing is, for Jill, she said one of the exciting things about hospitality interior design is that it is one of the few design specialties that needs to appeal to a broader market of people, right? A broader client, right? She has excellent advice for making this work. She gathers information from the property owner, the brand that she's working for, if that's what it is, from the demographic that place that she's designing is intended to serve, and from visiting the other hotels and hospitality places in the area. Okay. So if you listen to Jill today and you're thinking, man, I kind of might want to get into design like this. We've had other episodes with also very talented and successful hospitality designers, and I encourage you to listen to those. Episodes 276 with Judy Kiefer, number 163 with Hylianne Krasno, and episode 502 with Lisa Haughty of the Paradigm Design Group. Okay, these give you more insights into this particular niche of interior design. Well, Jill, thank you. I just loved having that conversation with you. I just think what you do is outstanding. And I definitely send you much cred and high five on building the long career, the long-standing interior design firm that you have. So congratulations on that. All righty, my friends. Thank you. Thank you tons for showing up and listening. I appreciate you. Decide to be excellent. Thank you for joining me today. This podcast is a production of LuAnn Niagara, Inc. If you want to know more about me, my books, or LuAnn University, go to LuAnnNiagara.com. And if you are interested in having WindowWorks help you with your next window treatment or awning project in the New York, New Jersey metro area, go to WindowWorksNJ.com to learn more. Have an excellent day.